Hello, friend. How you doing tonight? We're back for more story time. With me, Pamela. And the title for our study or our reading tonight is Friends, which is why I say hello, friends. So today we're going to do our study part and then reading and then back and wind it up with study again. Before I start, I just really want to share this. In our home, we have daily devotions that we do. And this Advent study is a great daily devotion for your kiddos. My kiddos can pull up the YouTube station and they can listen to it together, or they can do it independently. But these stories are phenomenal to catch children's attention and to teach them treasured truths that they'll carry with them throughout their whole life. They won't forget it. I don't know how many people have reached out to me on lives like this or later and said, oh my gosh, I used to read those, or I'm reading those to my kids or my grandkids, or I gave my grandkids a whole set, or I remember having my mom read that to me, whatever the case may be. These stories will make an impact. Okay. So sometimes people feel that they have to make up stories about themselves so others will like them. I can remember feeling that way. I can remember feeling that way as I was new in ministry, really feeling that way because I was new, I was young, I was one of the few women in the bunch. There were lots of men, and feeling like they had all these grandiose stories, and what did I have? So I can appreciate that. Sometimes people can feel that they have to take the real things they do and brag about them. Sometimes people just don't feel loved unless they are the center of attention. But Jesus came to earth exactly for the purpose of letting us know that every one of us is equally loved by God. And it doesn't matter what anybody else thinks of you. It doesn't matter if they think you're great or not, because God thinks you're great. And it does not matter what you have done, what you haven't done. Or if you think you haven't done great enough things, it doesn't matter. To God, you are great. So today, let's read Friends. Hello, friend. Jotham couldn't believe his eyes. He kept staring, expecting the sight to vanish like mirages he had seen so many times in the desert. But every time he blinked, the image was there. Camels. Hundreds of them, it seemed. And not the mangy, broken-hoofed kind he had grown used to. These camels were huge and strong and young. They stood proudly, their heads held high in the air, gold-braided cords running from the bits in their mouths to the saddles between their humps. Then there were people, 2 for every 1 camel, it seemed, all dressed in flowing red and purple and blue robes. The men all wore turbans of white cloth, and the women had veils over their faces. The tents of these people were like nothing like his father had. Instead of goatskin, they were made of a funny cloth that shimmered in the sun and blew easily in the breeze. Each one was made of many colors and came to a point in the air. I want you to stop just for a moment and think for a second, who do you think this might be? Are you ready? Then high in the air, Jotham saw the strangest sight of all. A wooden frame covered in colorful cloth danced in the wind. It was held there by a string, and the string led down to the ground where it was held by a small boy. Jotham had never seen anything so magical and wondered for a moment if evil spirits were at work. Jotham stood staring at the scene, not believing that any caravan could be so rich or so beautiful. Was he actually going to be traveling with these people? He wondered. Nathan led Jotham down to the caravan. There he asked around until he finally found the man he was looking for. "Salamar!" Nathan shouted. The man turned, and Jotham saw that he wore a huge turban with a red stone in the center. "Nathan, Nathan, my friend!" The two men met and kissed each other on the cheeks. "Nathan, I am pleased to see you again. You have grown old, my friend." Nathan laughed. "I'm at least not so young as when we raided the Sultan's armory," he said. Jotham could hardly believe that Nathan knew such a rich man, or they had ever done anything so bold as raid the armory of the Sultan. All Jotham ever knew was that Nathan read and copied scriptures all day. Pause. You see, everybody has a past. So don't think that your past is so awful that you can't be used for greatness, because you have greatness in you. All right. The two men all but ignored Jotham as they talked about their former times. But Jotham didn't mind. He enjoyed watching the people and seeing all the riches this caravan held. Finally, Nathan introduced Jotham, and Jotham bowed as he had been taught. "It is my honor to be in your presence," he said politely. The older man smiled and bowed. "Perhaps," Salamar said, "I should have my son entertain the boy while we talk." "Oh, that would be excellent," Nathan said. And Jotham nodded his head eagerly. Salamar called to the boy who was holding the string. He was about Jotham's age, and after handing the string to a servant, came running over, his green and black robe flowing behind him. "Yes, father," the boy said. "This is Jotham of Jericho. He is our guest. Treat him as such." That was all the instruction the boy needed. He bowed deeply to Jotham and said, "May the sheep on 1,000 hilltops grace your father's flock, and may you find peace and joy among the tents of my father." Jotham returned the bow, and the other boy introduced himself. "I am Ishtar of Persia." So they're from Persia, on camels, really wealthy. Who do you think this is? Ishtar, Persia. "It will be my honor to be your host in this most glorious day." With the formalities of protocol taken care of, the two boys ran off among the tents and the camels, Ishtar leading the way. Even though they were in Jotham's own land near the town of his birth, Jotham knew it was Ishtar's duty to act as the host as long as they were in his father's camp. As they passed the servant still holding the string, Jotham threw his head back and stared up into the sky. "What is that thing?" he asked, pointing to the cloth that flew. Ishtar looked up. "It's a kite," he said plainly. "It flies on the breath of the god of wind." The two boys wandered through the camp, but Jotham kept looking up at that kite in wonder. "This is my uncle Jotham's tent," Ishtar said, and Jotham gaped at the stitchery and colorful designs on the walls of the tent. "He comes from the house of Rajasthan. Rajasthan, there we go." This meant nothing to Jotham, but he knew it would be impolite to say so. Smaller tents surrounded the large ones of Ishtar's uncle. Jotham could see many women inside the tents and asked Ishtar about them. "Those are my uncle's favorite wives," he said. "He left the rest at home." Jotham was amazed at this. He'd known men who had 2 or 3 wives before, but he had never seen dozens of women married to one man. Where is home? Jotham asked. We come from Amarnath. Sorry if I said that wrong. Amarnath. And you are from Jericho, correct? Well, yes, that is where I was born. But my family are shepherds, and we live wherever the grazing is best, or there is a market for our sheep and our wool. Where is your family now? Ishtar asked. And so Jotham told him. He told him about finding his father's camp deserted, though he didn't say why, and about finding his own grave. He told how he had been picked up by another family of shepherds, how Decca of Megiddo had tried to sell him into slavery, about Nathan's daring rescue in En-Gedi. He told them of the flight to Qumran, and about Silas being killed here in Jericho, and about Elizabeth and Zechariah, and how he, Jotham of Jericho, was going to be the cousin of the Messiah. Then he told of Nathan's second rescue and how Caleb had killed most of Decca's men. When Jotham had finished telling all, Ishtar sat cross-legged in the sand with his head bowed. Jotham sat next to him, and after several minutes he said, Ishtar, something wrong? Ishtar spoke slowly without raising his head. I hang my head in shame for you, Jotham of Jericho. Jotham was shocked. Why? Because many men were killed on my account. Ishtar sucked in his breath and then slowly shook his head. No, he said, I'm embarrassed for you because you have to make up stories to try to impress me. In my land, that is called Posidon, building a false image. Jotham looked at Ishtar, anger rising inside of him like hot lava. Ishtar, he said through his teeth, everything I have told you is true. Ishtar just shook his head again slowly and refused to even look at Jotham. Finally, Jotham pulled him to his feet and said, follow me. Nathan and Salamar were sitting beside a fire drinking tea as Jotham and Ishtar approached. Ishtar's father frowned at the boy and said, Ishtar, why do you hang your head in shame? Ishtar fidgeted, not wanting to tell on his friend. Ishtar, answer, his father commanded. Slowly and painfully, Ishtar said, my friend Jotham has made Posidon. Ishtar's father looked from Jotham to Nathan and back. Then to his son, what did he tell you? Ishtar gave a brief summary of how trying to make it sound a little less preposterous in order to keep Jotham's punishment to a minimum. When he finished, Nathan began laughing and laughed so hard he fell on his side and knocked over the pitcher of tea. Ishtar, he said, wiping his eyes, everything that Jotham told you is absolutely true. Ishtar's eyes grew as wide open as grapefruit. But this cannot be, he said, slumping to the ground. My friend Jotham is no older than myself to have such adventures. Ishtar looked at Jotham. He looked at Jotham like he was a holy man, but now it was Jotham who hung his head in shame. It is true, he said. That much has happened to me in the last few days, but all of this happened, Ishtar, because I did a bad thing. Nathan's friend, Silas, lives no more because of my disobedience. It was quiet for a moment. Then Salamar said, it is a wise man who recognizes the fruit of his errors. It is a compassionate man who regrets that fruit. You are truly becoming a man, Jotham of Jericho. Salamar's kind words felt like a soothing ointment on a burn to Jotham. He smiled a little, and then Nathan said, Jotham, my friend Salamar and his caravan are headed west towards Jerusalem. He has agreed to take you as far as his course allows. Jotham's smile doubled in size. This time, he was headed for home, for sure. And with Deca of Megiddo dead, there was nothing that could stand in his way. Whew. Wow. So who do you think these fancy schmancy people are? Traveling on camels, wearing big tunics, colorful robes from Persia. Once you listen to this, type it in the comments of who you think it is. I'm so curious. Who you'll guess. So we see here that Jotham was telling the truth, but Ishtar was like, that can't possibly be true. You're trying to fluff yourself up to make yourself sound better in front of me because you don't have any money and I do. And all of it was true that he was saying, that Jotham was saying it was all true, but he was forgetting that part, that the reason all of it happened to begin with was why? Because of Jotham's disobedience. Jotham is not punished for telling the truth. In fact, when he does tell the truth and shares all, he is praised and called a young man, that he's truly coming into his manhood when he sees and acknowledges the error of his ways and how it affected other people. Jotham wasn't necessarily bragging when he told about all of his adventures, but he was erring when he wasn't filling in all the blanks. Because Ishtar was right when he said, you are talking tales, and what did he say? You're trying to build a false image. That's entirely true. Jotham was building a false image at first. And when a person is building a false image, telling tall tales, it is a sign that they don't feel very good about themselves. There's an insecurity there, and they're trying to convince others and really convince themselves that they're better than they feel in their heart that they are. Oh, have you ever felt like that? Have you ever felt like you needed to try to make yourself look bigger than life just so somebody will like you or pay attention to you? I can remember feeling that way. I remember a few times in life feeling that way and actually saying some things to try to make myself feel like I fit in. There is a simple cure for this. There's a simple answer. And it's very simple. And in fact, it not only is a cure for telling, not exaggerating the truth, but for the feelings that we carry inside of ourselves that make us feel like that we are inadequate and need to revise the way things happened. Here it is. The cure is to only be concerned about what God thinks of you. And remember, he knows it all. So there's no making up stories with him. And understand that when he looks at you, he doesn't see the flaws and the imperfections. He sees that you were fearfully and wonderfully made, and he sees the man or the woman, the child that has a purpose by design on their life and wanting to help them manifest it, to bring the greatness out in them and push them out into the divine call on their lives. If you think more about what God thinks about you, if that's the only thing you're concerned about, then what other people think about you isn't going to matter. And you know what? They're going to think the right things because you're going to be secure in who you are. And the passion and the provision and the purpose on your life is going to be obvious. So that's the answer. That's it. True friends. True friends are going to love you no matter what. Don't care about your imperfections. They're going to see what God sees in you. And if we only are concerned about what our God sees and how he sees us, we're, I want to say less likely, but maybe not even likely to get caught up in the image game. Okay, we're almost done. And on the very first Christmas day, God said, I love you more than anything in this universe. Goodwill, peace, goodwill towards men, joy unspeakable, divinity wrapped in humanity showing up on the scene. Jesus, the Christ, is born to take away the sins of the world. God loved you so much even then. Even then, on the very first Christmas day, it says, God said, to you, I love you more than anything in the universe. Oh, that's so beautiful. Happy Advent and Merry Christmas. Blessings. Love you tons. Bye-bye.